Once upon a time, in a small town where the streets were always bustling with hurried footsteps and distant sounds of car horns, there lived a young man named Alex. Alex had always been an ordinary person, someone who blended into the crowd without drawing much attention. He wasn't particularly brilliant, nor was he extraordinarily talented in anything. Yet, he carried within him a quiet desire for something more, a yearning for a life that felt meaningful and fulfilling. Every morning, he woke up in his modest apartment, staring at the peeling paint on the walls, listening to the distant hum of the city, and wondering if this monotonous routine was all life had to offer. His days were filled with small struggles that seemed to pile up endlessly. Each failure, each disappointment, felt like a heavy stone added to the backpack of his life. School had never been easy for Alex. He was average in his studies, often scoring just enough to pass exams, while his peers seemed to shine effortlessly. The feeling of inadequacy had followed him into adulthood, where the stakes were even higher. After graduating, he had applied for numerous jobs, each application filled with hope, yet each rejection left him feeling smaller and more uncertain. He would scroll through social media, seeing friends and acquaintances succeed in ways he had only dreamed of, and the comparison gnawed at his confidence. On some days, he would sit by the window, watching people pass by, thinking about the possibilities he had missed, and asking himself why success always seemed like something meant for others, not for him. One evening, after another discouraging day filled with rejection emails and unanswered job applications, Alex found himself walking home in the rain. The city glistened under the streetlights, reflections dancing on the wet pavement, but the beauty of the night did little to lift his spirits. His shoes were soaked, his coat barely keeping the chill away, and his mind was clouded with negative thoughts. He muttered to himself, "Maybe I'm not meant for success. Maybe some people are just unlucky, and I am one of them." The words felt heavy, as if they had anchored him in a sea of despair. He trudged along, staring at the puddles and lost in thought, until something unusual caught his eye. In the middle of the cracked sidewalk, pushing through the harsh concrete and resisting the relentless rain, was a tiny green plant. It was delicate yet determined, fragile yet unyielding. Alex stopped, kneeling slightly to get a better look, amazed at how life could persist even in the harshest conditions. The sight struck him deeply. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the little plant, realizing something he had never thought about before. This tiny, seemingly insignificant being was thriving despite all odds, pushing through a broken surface, growing in a place where no one expected life to flourish. Alex felt a strange sense of hope stir within him, a whisper of possibility he had long forgotten. He thought, if this small plant can find a way to survive and grow in such adversity, why can't I? The thought lingered, planting the first seed of change in his mind. That night, back in his apartment, he couldn't stop thinking about the plant. Its resilience seemed to mock the excuses he had been making for himself. It made him question his own approach to life. He realized that while he had been waiting for luck, opportunity, or some miraculous intervention, the real power had been lying dormant within him all along: his mindset, his persistence, his willingness to keep moving forward despite failure. The following morning, Alex awoke with an unfamiliar sense of purpose. He decided to take a small step toward changing his life, even if he didn't yet know exactly where it would lead. He walked to the local library, a place he had visited rarely in his life, and began searching for books that might offer guidance, inspiration, or even just a new perspective. Hours passed as he flipped through pages filled with stories of people who had faced tremendous challenges, yet had managed to overcome them with determination and a positive mindset. He found himself drawn to a particular book on positive thinking. Its words were simple but carried a quiet power. Your thoughts shape your reality. Focus on what you can control. Positivity is a habit, not luck. These words resonated with him in a way nothing else had before. Alex felt a spark ignite within him, a sense that perhaps change was possible, and that it could start with small, deliberate steps. He began experimenting with small practices. Each morning, he wrote down 3 positive things about himself. At first, the exercise felt forced and awkward. He struggled to find even a few qualities he could appreciate about himself, but he persisted. Slowly, over days and weeks, he noticed subtle shifts. He smiled more often, even at strangers on the street. He felt lighter in spirit, less burdened by past failures. He began approaching challenges with a new perspective, imagining possibilities instead of fearing setbacks. Alex realized that positivity wasn't about ignoring reality, it was about choosing how to respond to it. He understood that while he couldn't control every event, he could control his mindset, his thoughts, and his actions. Days turned into weeks, and Alex's small daily habits started to build momentum. He revisited the spot where the little plant had grown, marveling at how something so small could teach such a powerful lesson. Each time he passed it, he reminded himself that resilience was not about never failing, but about persisting despite failure. He felt a renewed sense of hope, a belief that his life could transform if he nurtured it with positivity and determination. The journey was far from easy, but for the first time in his life, Alex felt he was moving in a direction that could lead somewhere meaningful. He had discovered a seed of strength within himself, the first sign of a brighter future, and the beginning of a story that was entirely his to write. After discovering the small plant pushing through the cracked sidewalk, Alex felt a tiny spark of hope, but he knew that hope alone wouldn't change his life. He needed guidance, a roadmap, or at least a strategy to turn this newfound optimism into something tangible. The next morning, he returned to the library, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. He wandered past the shelves filled with countless books, each one a world of knowledge, stories, and lessons waiting to be discovered. His fingers traced the spines until one book seemed to call out to him. It was modest, its cover faded, but something about the title, The Power of Positive Thinking, resonated deeply. He pulled it off the shelf, found a quiet corner, and began reading. The words inside were surprisingly simple, yet each sentence carried weight. The book spoke of how thoughts shape reality, how the mind can influence not only emotions but actions, and how small daily habits can create monumental shifts in life. Alex read about people who had been in the depths of despair yet had risen to incredible heights simply because they refused to surrender to negativity. He read about habits like morning affirmations, visualization, and gratitude exercises. The simplicity of it fascinated him. He realized he had been overcomplicating his own life, seeking massive solutions for problems that could begin to be solved through small, consistent actions. He closed the book, feeling a new determination building inside him. That very evening, Alex decided to start implementing what he had learned. He bought a small notebook and began writing 3 positive things about himself every morning. At first, he struggled to even write one. I am. He murmured to himself, pausing as he tried to identify something worthy. But day by day, he forced himself to write. I am hardworking, he wrote one day, even if he doubted it. I am learning, he noted another morning, realizing that progress didn't have to be instant to matter. The act of writing made him reflect on his qualities and achievements, no matter how small. It was awkward, but he persisted, and slowly, a subtle shift occurred. He began noticing moments of strength, kindness, or resilience in himself that he had never acknowledged before. Alongside affirmations, Alex began practicing visualization. Every night, before sleep, he imagined the life he wanted. He pictured himself walking confidently into interviews, speaking clearly, feeling calm and assured. He imagined success not as a distant dream but as a tangible reality he could touch and experience. The more he visualized, the more natural it became to approach real-life situations with that confidence. Alex noticed that even when things didn't go perfectly, he felt less crushed by setbacks. The power of imagining success had given him a mental shield against negativity. He also began expressing gratitude for even the smallest things. At first, it felt strange to say, thank you, to life for ordinary moments like a warm cup of coffee or a smile from a stranger. But gradually, gratitude became a lens through which he viewed the world. Instead of dwelling on what he lacked, he focused on what he already had. He realized that life was not only about achievements but also about appreciating the simple, often overlooked gifts that each day offered. The more he practiced gratitude, the lighter he felt, as if a weight he had carried for years was slowly lifting. Despite these positive changes, life didn't suddenly become easy. Alex still faced challenges at work, difficulties with relationships, and moments of self-doubt. But now, he approached these obstacles differently. He reminded himself that setbacks were temporary, that failure was a lesson, not a verdict. He began to see mistakes not as evidence of inadequacy, but as opportunities to learn and grow. Even when criticism came from colleagues or friends, he didn't internalize it as a personal failure. Instead, he analyzed what could be improved, applied the lesson, and moved forward with renewed determination. One day, Alex faced a particularly tough challenge. He had prepared for an important presentation at work, one that could significantly impact his career, but a technical problem caused his slides to malfunction. In the past, he might have panicked, stumbled through his speech, and felt embarrassed for days. But this time was different. He took a deep breath, reminded himself of his visualization exercises, and proceeded with confidence. He spoke clearly, used simple examples, and engaged his audience without relying on slides. To his surprise, his manager praised him afterward, noting that his ability to handle the unexpected had impressed everyone. Alex realized that positive thinking was not about avoiding problems but about equipping oneself to face them with clarity and resilience. As weeks turned into months, Alex continued his practice diligently. His mornings of affirmations, nights of visualization, and daily gratitude exercises became rituals that grounded him. Slowly, he noticed a remarkable transformation. He was more confident, more patient, and more proactive in pursuing opportunities. He no longer feared failure, instead, he embraced challenges as chances to grow. His friends began noticing changes too. They commented on his calm demeanor, his constructive approach to problems, and the noticeable positivity that now radiated from him. Alex felt a sense of pride and joy that had eluded him for years. The most profound change, however, was internal. Alex realized that the power of positive thinking was not about superficial happiness or temporary motivation. It was about fundamentally changing the way he interacted with the world. By shifting his thoughts, he could shape his emotions, actions, and ultimately, his life. He understood that positivity was not a magic wand but a skill, something that required practice, discipline, and patience. And just like the small plant pushing through the sidewalk cracks, he had discovered that resilience and growth could emerge from even the harshest circumstances. One afternoon, while reflecting on his journey, Alex had a moment of clarity. He understood that the power of positive thinking had given him a sense of control over his life that he had never felt before. He wasn't waiting for luck, opportunity, or external validation. He had learned to cultivate his inner strength, to focus on what he could control, and to respond to challenges with a constructive mindset. The knowledge was liberating. He felt empowered, ready to take on larger goals, and excited about the possibilities the future might hold. By the end of this period, Alex was no longer the person who had felt small and defeated in his apartment, staring at the peeling walls. He had grown into someone who recognized his potential, valued his efforts, and approached life with hope and determination. Positive thinking had transformed him not overnight, but steadily, through consistent practice, reflection, and self-belief. And with this newfound mindset, Alex knew that he had the tools to navigate any challenge, to pursue his dreams, and to inspire others through his journey. He realized that his story was not just about personal success, it was about the profound impact that a positive mindset could have on one's entire life. Even though Alex had begun to see positive changes in his life, the road ahead was far from smooth. Life had a way of testing the strength of even the most determined hearts, and Alex soon discovered that cultivating positivity did not mean avoiding challenges. One morning, he received news that shook him: a major project at work had failed due to circumstances beyond his control. His team was disappointed, his manager was frustrated, and Alex felt a familiar pang of doubt creep into his mind. For a moment, he considered slipping back into the old pattern of self-criticism and despair. But then he remembered the lessons he had been learning over the past months. He recalled the tiny plant that had inspired him, the affirmations he had written every morning, and the visualizations that had kept his mind focused on possibilities instead of failures. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that setbacks were temporary, and that his response, not the problem itself, would define the outcome. Alex began by analyzing the situation calmly. Instead of blaming himself or others, he asked critical questions. What could he learn from this? What could be done differently next time? How could the team recover from this setback? He realized that positive thinking did not mean ignoring mistakes, it meant facing them with a solution-oriented mindset. He gathered his team and spoke with honesty, acknowledging the failure while emphasizing the lessons they could take from it. His words, delivered with sincerity and calm, inspired his colleagues. They felt supported rather than judged, motivated to find a way forward rather than dwell on disappointment. Alex understood that positivity, when combined with action, had the power to influence not only his own life but also the lives of those around him. Challenges continued to come. A few weeks later, Alex applied for a competitive position in another company, one that he had dreamt of for years. During the interview process, he faced tough questions, skepticism from the hiring panel, and moments where he felt inadequate. In the past, he would have let these pressures overwhelm him, succumbing to anxiety and fear. This time, however, he approached the situation differently. He relied on his inner discipline, grounding himself with the positive thoughts he had nurtured for months. He focused on his strengths, prepared thoroughly, and reminded himself that failure was not final. It was part of the journey. When the interview ended, he felt proud not because he knew he would get the job, but because he had faced the challenge with courage and composure. Despite these improvements, life wasn't always forgiving. Alex sometimes still heard the whispers of self-doubt. Negative thoughts would creep in unexpectedly: you're not good enough, you'll fail again, or this isn't for you. But now, instead of letting these thoughts define him, he treated them as visitors, observing them without attachment and gently redirecting his focus toward constructive action. He practiced mindfulness, meditation, and self-talk, constantly reinforcing the belief that he was capable, resilient, and worthy. The difference was subtle but profound. He no longer reacted to every challenge with panic or despair, but with thoughtfulness and intention. Friends and family began noticing the transformation. His friends commented on his calm demeanor, his optimism, and his newfound ability to inspire others. His parents, who had once worried about his lack of confidence, now saw him handling situations with poise and maturity. Alex realized that positivity was contagious. The more he practiced it, the more it influenced the people around him. At work, his colleagues began to respect his opinions and seek his advice during challenging projects. He had become someone who not only navigated his own difficulties with resilience but also lifted others in the process. One of the most significant tests of his newfound mindset came when Alex faced a personal crisis. A close friend of his was going through a severe health challenge, and Alex felt powerless to help. In the past, he would have been overwhelmed by worry, consumed by feelings of helplessness. This time, however, he focused on what he could do. Being present, offering support, and maintaining hope. He reminded himself that positivity did not mean ignoring pain, but facing it with courage and compassion. He spent time with his friend, helping with tasks, listening without judgment, and sharing moments of light and laughter whenever possible. Through this experience, Alex realized that the power of positive thinking was not selfish, it was a force that extended outward, helping others as much as oneself. As months went by, Alex noticed a transformation in his approach to goals and challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as threats, he began to view them as opportunities for growth. When a difficult task arose, he approached it with curiosity and determination, asking questions like, "What can I learn?" and "How can I improve?" His failures no longer felt like verdicts on his worth, but as valuable lessons that shaped his journey. He understood that positivity was not about denying reality or pretending that life was perfect, it was about choosing a perspective that empowered him to act, adapt, and thrive. At work, his efforts began to yield tangible results. Projects that had once seemed impossible were completed successfully. Colleagues began to approach him for advice, inspired by his calm, constructive approach. His reputation grew, not just as someone capable, but as someone resilient and dependable. Alex felt proud, not because of external recognition, but because he knew he had earned these successes through consistent effort, discipline, and the cultivation of a positive mindset. The biggest revelation for Alex came when he realized that the journey itself was more important than any destination. It was not just about achieving a dream job, earning recognition, or overcoming a specific challenge, it was about transforming his inner world. He had learned to manage his thoughts, cultivate gratitude, and respond to adversity with confidence and grace. He saw that life's struggles were inevitable. Months of persistent effort, reflection, and positive thinking had brought Alex to a turning point in his life. The small daily practices he had cultivated, the morning affirmations, the visualization exercises, the gratitude journaling, and the mindset shifts, had begun to compound into real change. Yet he knew that true transformation would not be complete until he faced a major challenge, something that would test the strength of everything he had learned. That challenge arrived sooner than he expected when he applied for a highly competitive position at a prestigious company, one that had always seemed out of reach. The process was daunting, with multiple interviews, assessments, and rigorous scrutiny. Alex felt the familiar flutter of nerves, but he reminded himself of the countless times he had faced obstacles before and emerged stronger. From the very first interview, Alex noticed a change in himself. He was calm, composed, and focused. He no longer allowed fear or self-doubt to dominate his thoughts. Instead, he centered himself, recalling the positive affirmations he had practiced over the months: I am capable, I am prepared, I am resilient. He approached each question with clarity and confidence, drawing from his real experiences and knowledge rather than overthinking or second-guessing himself. Even when the interviewers posed unexpected or challenging questions, he did not panic. He responded thoughtfully, demonstrating not only his skills but also his ability to remain composed under pressure. During the waiting period between interviews, Alex used the time to reinforce his positive mindset. He visualized himself succeeding, imagining the sense of accomplishment, the pride in his work, and the joy of stepping into a role that aligned with his goals. He continued his gratitude practice, focusing on the support of his friends and mentors, the lessons he had learned from past failures, and the opportunities that still lay ahead. He realized that the power of positivity was not about ignoring uncertainty but about choosing to focus on what could be controlled: his effort, preparation, and mindset. Each day, he grew more confident, more patient, and more prepared to embrace the outcome, whatever it might be. When the final interview arrived, Alex felt a surge of clarity and purpose. He walked into the room with his head held high, shoulders relaxed, and a calm confidence that radiated from within. The interviewers were impressed by his composure, the way he articulated his thoughts, and his ability to approach complex problems with practical solutions. For the first time, Alex truly understood that positive thinking was not just a mental exercise. It was a tool that had tangible effects on behavior, communication, and performance. His consistent practice had transformed his internal world, which in turn transformed his external reality. The moment of truth came a few days later when he received the call offering him the position. The joy and relief he felt were immense, but more profound than the external achievement was the realization of how far he had come. Alex understood that the real victory was not simply the job itself, but the journey he had undertaken to cultivate resilience, positivity, and self-belief. He reflected on how he had once doubted his worth, feared failure, and let setbacks define him. Now, he had developed a mindset that allowed him to face any challenge with confidence and grace. Alex's breakthrough extended beyond professional success. The lessons he had learned in cultivating a positive mindset began to influence all areas of his life. He approached relationships with empathy and understanding, appreciating the strengths and efforts of others rather than focusing on their flaws. He engaged in personal growth practices, continued learning, and explored new interests with curiosity and openness. He realized that positive thinking was not a one-time achievement but a lifelong practice, one that required consistent effort and mindfulness. Every choice he made, every thought he nurtured, contributed to the ongoing transformation of his life. As he settled into his new role, Alex found that his attitude had a ripple effect on those around him. His colleagues noticed his calm, solution-oriented approach and began seeking his guidance during challenging projects. His positive mindset created a collaborative and supportive environment, inspiring others to adopt similar practices in their own lives. Alex understood that the power of positive thinking was not limited to personal growth, it had the potential to influence entire communities, workplaces, and relationships. His journey was becoming a source of inspiration for others, demonstrating that transformation was possible for anyone willing to cultivate resilience, focus, and optimism. In addition to his professional achievements, Alex began sharing his story more broadly. He started a blog and social media channels, detailing the practices and mindset shifts that had helped him overcome obstacles. He emphasized that success was not about luck or innate talent but about deliberate effort, persistence, and the conscious choice to focus on positivity even in difficult times. His audience grew rapidly, drawn to the authenticity of his experiences and the practical advice he offered. Alex realized that sharing his journey not only helped others but also reinforced his own commitment to the principles he had learned. Through these experiences, Alex understood that the power of positive thinking was deeply interconnected with action. Thoughts alone could inspire hope, but it was consistent effort, deliberate choices, and the courage to face challenges that brought real change. He reflected on the moments when he had faltered, struggled, or doubted himself, and recognized that each challenge had been a stepping stone, a necessary part of his growth. He learned to embrace uncertainty with confidence, seeing each obstacle as an opportunity to strengthen his character and refine his approach to life. The breakthrough also changed Alex's perspective on failure. He no longer feared it, nor did he view it as a reflection of his worth. Instead, he treated failures as valuable lessons, each one providing insight into what could be improved or approached differently. He realized that the journey toward success was not linear and that resilience, adaptability, and positivity were essential to navigating the inevitable ups and downs. This mindset empowered him to take calculated risks, pursue new opportunities, and approach life with a sense of adventure rather than fear. By the end of this period, Alex had transformed into a person who not only achieved tangible success but also cultivated a mindset that could sustain him through future challenges. He had discovered that the true measure of success was not a job title, a salary, or external recognition, but the ability to maintain inner peace, confidence, and optimism regardless of circumstances. The breakthrough was not an endpoint but a beginning, a foundation upon which he could continue to build a life filled with purpose, growth, and fulfillment. Alex reflected on his journey, remembering the small plant that had inspired him to take the first steps toward positive thinking. That tiny symbol of resilience had sparked a chain reaction, leading to months of consistent practice, personal growth, and ultimately, profound transformation. He realized that life's challenges would continue, but the tools he had developed, gratitude, visualization, affirmations, and positive mindset, would equip him to navigate whatever came next. His breakthrough was more than a career achievement. It was a shift in identity, a deep understanding that he was capable, resilient, and empowered to shape his own destiny. As Alex settled into his new life, he realized that the journey he had undertaken was more than just a personal achievement, it had become a purpose, a way to inspire and guide others. The lessons he had learned through months of persistent effort, reflection, and positive thinking had transformed him in ways he never imagined. He no longer measured success solely by external accomplishments like job titles or recognition but by the quality of his thoughts, the strength of his mindset, and the impact he could have on others. Every morning, he continued his practice of affirmations, writing 3 positive qualities about himself and 3 things he was grateful for. It had become a ritual, a reminder that even small daily actions could create monumental changes over time. Alex also continued to visualize the life he wanted, imagining not only his professional success but also the positive influence he could have on his community. He imagined mentoring young people, sharing his journey, and helping them cultivate the mindset and habits that had helped him overcome countless challenges. Visualization had become more than just a mental exercise, it was a blueprint for action. He began taking deliberate steps to turn these visions into reality, offering guidance, organizing workshops, and sharing his experiences online. People from different walks of life reached out to him, inspired by his story and eager to learn from his approach. He realized that positivity was not limited to individual success, it could ripple outward, touching countless lives and creating a network of support, encouragement, and inspiration. Despite the progress he had made, Alex knew that life would continue to present challenges. There were still moments of uncertainty, setbacks, and unexpected difficulties. But he had learned to approach them with resilience and perspective. He reminded himself that setbacks were temporary and that each challenge was an opportunity for growth. When difficulties arose, he no longer felt defeated. Instead, he asked himself, "What can I learn from this? How can I respond constructively?" This mindset